Hello, welcome. So today we're going to be taking a look at r/Best of Redditor updates. If I sound a little bit quieter or a little closer to the microphone, we are now in the 6 weeks holidays. The kids are off for 6 weeks. I am recording very late at night. Anyway, if a dig through Best of Redditor updates sounds just up your alley today, then please do stick around and enjoy. And don't forget to like and subscribe, please. Thank you. And of course, quick disclaimer, any opinions that I give on the post we read today are just opinions, not facts, do not need to be taken as such. If you have a differing opinion, please do feel free to leave it in the comments below. Just make sure you're keeping it respectful with each other. There is no need to be mean just because you do not agree. With that being said, let's get into it then, shall we? So this one was posted by Direct Caterpillar 77 and the title says, "Am I the butthole for the email I sent to a teacher about her 'you have to include everyone' rules, saying that was a dangerous lesson?" And by the way, if I'm tripping over my words or I sound a little bit lispy, I have bitten my tongue in my sleep, so I clench my jaw so bad in my sleep, and now and then my cheeks or my tongue gets in the way. I'm getting new mouth guards though on Tuesday. My mouth guards, I've chewed holes in every single one. So I'm on my last one now, which is on its last legs itself. But I'm getting new ones on Tuesday, thank goodness. So this should not be a problem for long. Anyway, this one was originally posted by u/ProtectiveMummyG into r/Am I the Butthole on April 24th, 2022. So Direct Caterpillar is not the original poster, they are the person who compiled it together for us like a lovely wee bean. So the OP says, "My daughter is 12. I'm trying to teach her ways of creating and respecting her boundaries that are age appropriate. Kudos, good lesson to teach them. Teaching her that it's okay to say no to things that she feels uncomfortable with. There is a boy in her class who keeps bothering her and her female friends at recess. I've encouraged her to go to me or her teacher when this happens. My daughter told me a few days ago that in class the teacher had asked the kids to form groups of about 4 or 5. She had formed a group of 5 with some other girls. Then the boy who had been giving her trouble at recess came over and said he was joining their group. Another girl said that they already have 5 and he should work with a group who only have 2 or 3 people. He said no because the teacher had said about 4 or 5. My daughter then said that she didn't want to work with him and he should go find another group. A few of the other girls agreed with her. He said that, 'You can't exclude me like that, it's against class rules,' and she said she didn't care. I heard about this from my daughter first, and the way she talked about it, she had been firm but not unkind. But then I get an email from her teacher saying that she wanted to call. She said that there had been an incident at school where my daughter had excluded another child and that wasn't allowed in her class, and she wanted me to have a talk with her about it. Her telling of events was the same as my daughter's. I felt proud of my daughter for her honesty. I sent her an email saying, 'Dear Mrs. Teacher, I'm sorry, but this is not a lesson I feel comfortable teaching my daughter. She's at the age where she is already having to deal with unwanted attention, and I'm making a point to teach her that she does not have to be around anyone who makes her uncomfortable, and that a young lady is able to choose to spend time with people who make her feel respected.' Yeah, and heavy on that already having to deal with unwanted attention. I remember in middle school, I was in, I think like year 6, so I would have been about 10, 11, and there was this lad, and I remember his name even to this day. I won't tell you his last name, but I remember his name. His name was Simon, because he was basically heavy on the path to become a pervert when he was an adult. I'm telling you now, the things he did to like just girls in the year group in general. But unfortunately, one day it was me. I was the target of Simon's unwanted attentions. So every now and then for English, we'd go into the library and we'd have our English lesson in the library. You know, we'd take out books and stuff, we'd read them, blah, 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 you know, the works. In the library, the tables were big round tables. So there would be multiple of us sitting at one table each. So there was about 5 of us on a table, me and Simon included. He was sat opposite me, and I remember this very well, by the way, because I think I was slightly traumatized by this, what happened on this day. So the other kids had got up to go get their books. I wasn't changing my book because my book from like 2 weeks before I hadn't actually bothered to read. So I wasn't actually changing my book. I was deciding to keep the one I had. He stayed at the table as well, and then he looked over at me and he went, "Look under the table, there's something really cool I want to show you." Me being stupid, looked onto the table. It wasn't something cool. He had his wang out. It was disgusting. I felt sick. I told him he was fucking gross. And then I told him that I was going to tell the teacher. I don't remember if I did or not. I can't remember. But yeah, that was a very early introduction on how women have to deal with stuff like that all the time. As you get older, it turns into unwanted and unsolicited pictures in your DMs or on WhatsApp or whatever. But yeah, absolutely disgusting. And I remember just feeling so insanely uncomfortable and then not wanting to sit anywhere near that lad ever again. It was awful. So OP then goes on to say, "I understand you're already aware boy has been behaving in ways that she feels uncomfortable with at recess from our prior conversations. I think it's a very dangerous lesson to teach a girl that she has to include and be kind to everyone instead of teaching her to be aware of when someone is not respecting her no and stepping out of the situation. I hope I don't have to explain in too much detail why I find this important, but to put it briefly, I was brought up with the include everyone mindset, no exceptions. It taught me to ignore my own comfort level, and as I became a young adult, I became the victim of men who used my inability to say no to their advantage. It's a dangerous lesson and no longer appropriate at that age. Thank you. OP." She emailed me back asking for a meeting in person with the principal. I'm preparing for that, but wondering if my email was too harsh. Am I the butthole for my response to my daughter's teacher? 1, the email was not too harsh. I'm sure I could have wrote it far harsher for you. That was pretty level-headed and just to the point, not harsh at all. And 2, it is a really ridiculous thing for the teacher to be enforcing anyway. Include everyone should be for, cases of you can't exclude people because of the colour of their skin, their ethnicity, because of where they live or, their financial status or their parents' financial status, should I say. You can't exclude someone just because you think they're a bit of a nerd or whatever. That should be what that's for, not, oh, you're not allowed to exclude the person who's bullying you. What? Or in fact, actually, I'm not sure the OP explicitly says the boy is bullying them, just acting inappropriate towards them. But, potato, potato, my point still stands. So, verdict was clearly not the butthole, and I am not surprised, and we have some relevant comments. OOP to a downvoted comment on why this is important. So I think what they're saying is the commenter said, oh, the include everyone thing is an important thing to have. Miss me with that. I feel like a better lesson for future life is that if you're in a group, i.e. workplace, where someone has done stuff to make you feel uncomfortable, it's okay to not want to work with them. It's okay to ask your boss to reassign you, or the other person, or to report harassment to HR, or even if HR and management don't address harassment, to leave a job. Your safety is worth more than professionalism. I feel like that's just life, there isn't a way out of it kind of attitude is dangerous, because harassment doesn't have to be a part of life and there is always a way out. Exactly. I used to be the kind of person that would hold things in and not say how I felt, but I also had a very hot temper. So in my early 20s, I had a hot temper, early to mid 20s. And I'm pretty good at controlling it now, to be fair. Even if I really want to blow up, I'm really good at just kind of going, just light some incense and, light a candle and breathe a bit. Keep the thoughts of where you'd bury them inside. But there was this one girl I worked with, and I'd come into the company, I think about 6 months after she had joined the company, and she just took this great disliking to me. She'd be really nice to my face, but then I'd catch her trying to whisper to one of the other co-workers behind my back, and I would feel her eyes on my back like friggin' daggers. And I think it's basically because at the time I was an extroverted introvert, so I'm a very introverted person. Way more so now, but I used to be able to kind of push down my introvert tendencies until I got home and then ball up in a corner somewhere in the house, after all the effort to be extroverted. And I'm always one of them that if I'm in a group of people, I can talk, I can laugh, I can have a joke and all that lot. And she was the sort of person that she had this air of she was better than everyone about her. So I think it kind of rubbed people up the wrong way. So obviously I got a lot closer with, certain co-workers. And I think she took exception to that, basically. So there had been a 2-week period where she was just being an arsehole all the time. So we basically did the same job. We worked on the same stuff. We'd have a folder basically with what jobs there was to do. So if she'd taken the folder, I'd have to go and ask for it, or I'd just say, look, is there anything on the folder that needs immediately seeing to that you can't see to right now? Pass it here, I'll do it. She wasn't a supervisor, wasn't a manager, none of that. It was just kind of a thing of we had to work together because we were both working through the same folder of jobs. So anyway, she'd been an absolute bumhole this whole week, really short with me, hiding the folder, and then she'd be like, oh, sorry, I forgot I put it there. Or I'd go up and ask her about jobs and she'd be like, I don't know. Like, well, can I have the folder? No, I'm using it right now. Well, then what else do you expect me to do, love? Just stand here like a lemon? So then she'd also, if things weren't getting done quick enough or whatever, she'd go and try and grasp me into the boss and be like, pretend like it's my fault. So I'd endured 2 weeks of this, and I was at tipping point, boiling point, and I'd gone up to her and I'd done the same. I'd asked her what jobs needed doing, if there was anything that she'd seen immediately that needed doing. She used to come in extra early, by the way, because I don't know, I think she just had this idea that she was just like stupidly important, so she needed to come in first and look through everything first. Do you know what I mean? So I'd come in, I'd said to her, what jobs are on, what any important that you've seen, and she just flat out ignored me. There was no one else in the room at this point, so we had our main room and then we had a little side room and she was sat in there. So I think she felt a bit more emboldened, so she flat out ignored me. So I was like, is there any jobs that need doing? Flat out ignored me again, and I went, you're doing my fucking head in, and I walked out. So then she came out and I was like, what is your problem? So I thought, I'm going to wait. I'm going to call her out in front of everyone else. I said, what is your problem? I've been asking you what jobs need to be doing and you're just flat out ignoring me. Like, what is the issue? And then I said, and you know for a fine fact that if things don't get done, you'll be straight away trying to grass on me and get me in trouble. Anyway, she tried to smirk at me and go, I don't know what you mean. That was it. Snap. The straw broke. The straw friggin' broke. So I just said, like, if you smirk at me one more time like that, I said, I will come over and I will wipe that smirk off your face. So at this point, by the way, I'm actually marching towards her because I was genuinely planning on doing it too. So anyway, one of my other co-workers kind of hopped in like, oh, let's just go and get a coffee in the other warehouse. So basically we had 2 warehouses that were attached to each other. One was a different business, but both businesses were owned by the same person. So I went over into the other warehouse and sat with, their guys over there and just sort of chilled out, ranted a bit about how I wanted to knock a block off and all this lot. And then I just got it out. Anyway, she got in trouble for that, by the way. Because my boss had actually noticed that what she was doing. And he'd obviously been keeping an eye on it and I didn't realise. And yeah, she got in trouble for it. And all I got was perhaps don't threaten to punch someone in the workplace, please. Which I thought, that's fair. But yeah, it's good to be able to, probably not the way I did it, but good to be able to call out co-workers or anyone if they're not treating you right within the workplace. You've got to be able to do that, haven't you? You shouldn't have to put up with being mistreated anywhere or put up with people just to keep the peace or whatever. Anyway, let's get back to it because I've gone on a waffle. I stayed at a job for way too long when my boss was harassing me, and I wish I had the lesson at that time of your safety and dignity is worth more than whatever they're paying you. Find a new job ASAP. And then the OOP to a deleted commenter on what the bully has done. What has he done to make them uncomfortable? When my daughter and her female friends were having girl talk, that they'd be embarrassed to have people over here, nothing too embarrassing, just talking about kissing, which I guess is what passes as scandalous at that age, lol. He hid near them and listened in for a while. He also chases a few of the girls around the playground even though they don't want to play that way, and keep yelling at him to stop and leave them alone. Does he have friends? I'm not really sure. My daughter never said either way. She said she tries to keep away from him and not pay attention to what he's up to when she can help it, so I'm not sure she'd know. Considering they're a group of 5 girls and the teacher is calling out the daughter for being exclusive, I am inclined to think, without more info, that this kid might be an outcast. I kind of get snooty girl vibes from this, but I could be totally off the mark. I think you're totally off the mark. If this lad is like constantly sniffing around them, chasing them and stuff, and they're asking him to leave them alone, that's not okay behavior. He is overstepping. My daughter really isn't that type. If anything, I think she struggles with standing up for herself without feeling bad about it afterwards. I'm trying to teach her it's not something to feel guilty about. Also, a serious question for you. What about my post gave the impression that my daughter was unreasonable or mean? It is a very concerning trend when I see that any time a girl stands up for her boundaries, there's some voice going, oh, but did she go too far? Was she really justified? Seriously, I'm curious. Can you reflect on what made you ask that and really consider how dangerous a message that can be if you ask the same thing around young women in your life? Exactly. And this is the thing. It's not that the daughter has been like calling him names, being nasty or whatever. She's just like, please can you stop chasing us and please leave us alone. So then QWERTYU858 says, unless you're a doormat, you already know you weren't the a-hole. Now be very firm that you want that boy as far as possible from your daughter and that you will personally sue the school and the teacher if something ever happens. And then the OOP says, haha, as much as I try to teach my daughters about boundaries, it's still something I struggle with feeling guilty about sometimes. Hard to unlearn those wrong lessons, which is honestly why I want to teach her differently from a young age, so she doesn't grow up with that baggage, lol. So then the OOP updated April 26th, 2022, 2 days later. Edit to update, I reached out to the parents of the other 4 girls in the class who were involved, and we are all coordinated to go speak to the school administration together. They had similar views, thinking it was inappropriate for the school to expect the girls work with someone who they are not comfortable with, and frustrated the teacher didn't do more to deal with the issues during recess that made the girls uncomfortable to start with. I ended up asking the school if we could reschedule the meeting to a time all the involved families could make, and we ended up meeting this afternoon along with the husband, another couple, 2 mothers and a father, along with the teacher and principal. Honestly, I'm so surprised they agreed to that because quite often teachers do not like it when parents gather in numbers to tell them that they have done wrong. We all presented a united front asking for the following. The school does training for the teachers on trauma-informed teaching methods and the dangers of expecting young women to go against their best judgment of their own boundaries to be nice. Instead of include everyone, the kids should be allowed to respectfully set boundaries and taught to respect each other's boundaries. The school addresses harassment in class or at recess and doesn't enable it to continue. We went to talk, and I think it went a lot better having all the parents join instead of if I'd gone alone. The teacher and the principal apologised, and the principal agreed to look for resources on how better to navigate the balance between being inclusive and not forcing kids into including someone who is crossing a line with them. Thanks a lot for all the amazing advice in the comments. I cannot believe how much this blew up, and I'm so grateful to everyone who replied with advice and support, and honestly was getting pretty emotional hearing how the lessons I'm trying to teach my little one resonated with other women, whether they're mums too or have been through some of the same struggles I have. Yeah, honestly, I do think it's such an important lesson to teach. Like, I don't think I know a single woman who hasn't had some sort of repercussion from the whole just be nice, just smile at them, don't be rude. If you tell them to go away, then you're a bitch. If you tell them to stop, then you're being a bitch. If you say, I don't want to talk to you, I'm not interested, that makes you a bitch. Do you know what I mean? I don't think I know a single woman who's not had a repercussion from that mindset that gets pushed on us as women. Like, even for myself, like I say, that story from earlier from when I was a literal kid, and then the whole reason I never actually ended up driving and I don't have a driving license is because I did driving lessons and I got completely put off because the driving instructor that I was doing them with, I was doing lessons for, a good few months with this guy. He had a wife, he had a daughter. He was also like 40 years older than me. Maybe not 40, maybe like 30. I don't know. Old enough. I was about 25, 26. I got off a lesson with him. And that same night, it was about 8 o'clock at night, I was sat at a friend's house and he messaged me. And in the message, it said something like, Void, are you available? I just need someone to talk dirty for me. I want to get up. And I was like, what the hell? So I read this message, I showed it to my friend, I didn't reply. I was just talking to her about what would you do about this? Like, this is gross. By the way, the reason that I think this kind of pertains to the story that we're reading here, the reason I feel like this is relevant to the story that we're reading here is because he would make like almost slightly flirtatious or sexual or innuendo-ish jokes all the time on our lessons, and I'd just kind of go and kind of laugh it off unenthusiastically, because I felt like if I was like, can you not, that would be rude. It would be me being rude or me being too bloody uptight or whatever that we get told that it is if we do that. So I didn't do that, and then it ended up in him crossing that boundary. So then afterwards he texted me again saying like, I just want to be told off or something like this, and I was just like, ew, this is so gross, this is so creepy. I told him, basically I messaged back saying cancel all my pre-booked lessons that I have with you, do not message me again. That was completely crossing a boundary, and I think that's the moment as well when I finally learned to stop being nice, to stop being accommodating, and to just say, you're creeping me out, pack it in. That was the moment. That was my epiphany moment, I feel. And it was just so creepy because as well, you think this guy had all of my personal info. He had the info of my driving license, because they tend to take a provisional license, they'll take a photo of it. So he had that, he had my address, he had all my personal information, my phone number, blah blah blah. He knew where I worked because he'd picked me up from work like loads of times as well. I'd sometimes take a driving lesson on my lunch break or things like that. So he knew a lot of personal things about me, and it really creeped me out because then I felt like I was watching my back after I blocked him, because even though I'd had that epiphany of, you need to just stop, you need to stop accepting this stuff of people, you need to put your foot down, you're not being a bitch, you're not being a fridge, you're not doing this, that or the other, you are just sticking up for yourself and setting healthy boundaries. I still had that thing of that paranoia of you're overstepping the mark, or the paranoia of what are they going to do? Are they going to be mad that I have said that and then retaliate, So yeah, I think it's a very important lesson to learn, and it may seem on the surface as very sort of minor, like, oh, it's only he's just chasing him around the thingy, he's just chasing him around the playground. You don't need to go this far with it. It's hardly the same thing, but it's like, yeah, but that's the stuff it builds up to. And if you're taught to ignore things like that, you then learn to ignore bigger things too. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, let's have a read of the comments, because I've waffled. So Fox Flame says, God, I wish I had OOP as a parent growing up. I had to literally punch boys in elementary school for touching and kissing me when I already said no. Was always told that I needed to let them down gently, or I needed to be nice and include people. And then Ophelia Rain Galaxy says, I once got kicked off the school bus in 8th grade for a week because I slapped a boy who poured my chest while insisting I am a prostitute and just need to name my price. Really fun part is the bus driver set it up, gave us assigned seats, forcing me to sit between the window and that boy. I told the driver why I didn't want to sit with him and was given the choice to walk home if I didn't like it. Lived miles outside town limits and didn't have reliable parents. That is creepy. Creepy, creepy, creepy. Oh, no. Icky. Okay then, so I think that's where we're going to leave it for today. It is 1 a.m. Oh my goodness. I always I'm like, oh, I want to stay up later because I want to actually have me time and what have you, but then I always regret it the next day. Wholeheartedly. Never mind, eh? If you made it all the way to the end with me, then I appreciate you very, very much. If you give a little like, subscribe, notifications on, don't forget to leave an offering of a comment for Big Al telling them what a turd they are. Because that'll be your initiation into the Common Void. Welcome. Whatever it is you're doing for the day, I hope you have a really good rest of the day. Bye!